Good evening to everybody, and welcome to Dia's Readings in Contemporary Poetry series. My name is Megan Whitko, and I'm an assistant curator here at Dia, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's reading. I'm also very pleased to welcome our two poets here this evening, David Lehman and Mary Jo Bang. Thank you both for generously agreeing to be here, to be a part of the series. And also thank you to Mary Jo for traveling here to be with us tonight. We appreciate that. I also want to extend a heartfelt thank you to Dominique Levy Gallery, who provides major support for the Readings in Contemporary Poetry series. Additional support is provided by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, as well as our media sponsor, the Brooklyn Rail. And we also want to thank Brooklyn Brewery for the complimentary cold beverages. And lastly, we are deeply appreciative of the assistance of all of Dia's staff with coordinating this series, and in particular, Francesca, Max, Maria, and Mary Catherine. So I'm sure a lot of you here are regulars. I see some familiar faces, but if not, a brief outline of events for the evening. So following our first reader, we have a brief 10-minute intermission before resuming with the second speaker of the evening. During the intermission, we have titles by both poets that are available for sale out front. So I encourage you to go and browse those, as well as if you'd like to sign up for additional emails from Dia, you're welcome to do that as well. So lastly, it is my pleasure to introduce Vincent Katz, who curates the Readings in Contemporary Poetry series, and he is going to introduce our first speaker for the evening. So thank you.
Thank you, Megan, and thank you all for coming out tonight. I just wanted to mention our upcoming readings. This is the second reading of the season tonight. And on November 1st, we have Patricia Spears-Jones and Christopher Stackhouse. And then on December 6th, it will be Adam Fitzgerald and Simone White. So please come out for those as well. The first reader will be David Lehman. David Lehman is a poet and teacher who lives and works in New York and Ithaca. He's the author of several collections of poems, including The Daily Mirror, The Evening Sun, When a Woman Loves a Man, Yeshiva Boys, and New and Selected Poems, published by Scribner in 2013. Among his other books are The Perfect Murder, a study of detective novels, and The Last Avant-Garde, a history of the New York School of Poets. Lehman is the series editor of The Best American Poetry, and he's the editor of the Oxford Book of American Poetry. David Lehman's poetry takes tropes familiar from literary history and also from everyday life, and puts wickedly witty spins on them. The reader of Lehman's poems is frequently aware of this poet's erudition, which extends to various compass points on what used to be referred to as the high-low spectrum. Lehman's prescient attention in his poetry and prose to forms as diverse as detective writing and popular song seems especially timely. Lehman's poems are filled with details that seem as though they come from the poet's own life and personal history. But whether or not they do, they are always in the service of a broader mission, that of poetry, with a capital P. Many poets are in love with poetry. They'd have to be insane to live the lives they do and not be. But few can muster the consistent awareness in their poetry of the fact that what they are writing belongs to a broadly flowing river of other poetry. Many of Lehman's titles are memorable in themselves. In his poem, The Difference Between Pepsi and Coke, an early poem, one might assume he is thinking of his own father when he writes, sings Schubert in the shower, plays pinball in Paris, knows the new maid steals and forgives her. But then one realizes the pop referred to in the poem, as well as being a play on the sodas of the poem's title, does not have to refer to Lehman's own father and could easily be someone else's or be invented. Even a seemingly simple title like Rejection Slip has a double meaning. So precise is Lehman's attention to language and intonation. There is history, as in the poem A Little History, which begins, "Some people find out they are Jews." There are senses of place and architecture, particularly urban, as in The World Trade Center, written in 1993. Of all the histories and stories in Lehman's poems, the reader is left wondering and wanting to know, was that real? Who was that about? For there is a dreamlike quality, too, to Lehman's poetry that turns its words back on itself. As much as it seems to let the reader in, it also holds back, keeping something in reserve, something that belongs only to poetry. Please join me in welcoming the mysterious, erudite David Liman.
Thank you very much, Vincent, for that wonderful introduction. And I think you're the first person who noticed that about the difference between Pepsi and Coke, which is really interesting to me. I'd like to thank also Megan and the Brooklyn Brewery and the Brooklyn Rail and the audience, you, for coming. I'd like to begin by reading a poem about Bob Dylan, who's been in the news. It's called Highway 61 Revisited. In the name of Abe, biblical predecessor of Honest Abe, who freed the slaves, and also Bobby's dad, I stand at your gate with faith equal to doubt, and I say, look out, kid, no matter what you did. And incredulity gives way to unconditional surrender. Abe say, where do you want this killing done? God say, out on Highway 61. God directs traffic. And young Isaac says, it's all right, Ma, I'm only bleeding. And Ma say, it's all right, boy, I'm only breathing. And Dad unpack his heart with words like a whore. Young Isaac ain't gonna work for Maggie's brother no more. Ike no like the white man boss. And when stuck inside of Mobile to even the score, he looks at the stream he needs to cross, despite schemes of grinning oil pot oligarch Arschloch who want to be on the side that's winning. So he climbs up to the captain's tower and does his sinning, and has read all of F. Scott Fitzgerald's books. He no get where he got because of his looks. He's on the pavement talking about the government, and he knows something's happening, but he don't know what it is. A strange man, Mr. Jones. Isaac Jones, that is. I understand the Nobel Committee has not been able to reach Bob Dylan, which is a relief, because I also have not been able to reach him. Here is a poem written for my wife Stacy. It's called Panama Hat. What kind of poems do you write? The interviewer asked, and I said, occasional poems. Each day is an occasion. Take today. The sun shone on my face, shielded by a Panama hat made in Ecuador, and the fate of a leaf in a hurricane was the day's best simile for financial markets, where the value of green keeps going up. The trees and the grass are vying in the green competition because good is as visible as green, and the lawns are emerald like the eyes of my beloved when she saw the ring with two hearts and an emerald crescent in the jeweler's case. The food tasted good and simple, beans and rice, chicken, coconut sorbet, white cherries, lemonade, and Matthew's concoction with chinar and jalapeno-infused gin. The ice cubes in the glass sounded like nothing but themselves. The sky was blue, the shirt fit, I washed the car. The newspaper reported that Cambridge is catching up to Oxford in real estate prices, and my 1,000 words on To His Coy Mistress were nicely illustrated as I sat and sipped in the sun. And then I read the new bio of Duke Ellington and Helen Forrest's own story, and tilted my hat as I walked, celebrating the day, the occasion for taking a walk, enjoying the light, and my new Panama hat. Well, I have a late friend, Paul Violi, who was a colleague of mine at the New School, and this poem was written after he left us. Romulus and Remus. Look for Remus in the index of a book, and you are bound to get See Romulus, which is perfectly logical, but makes me wonder about indexes or indices and why I prefer the former term as the plural, except in a financial context, and how an index to a book that may not exist may imply a whole biography, as my friend Paul Violi showed in his poem, Index. My late friend, Paul Violi, whom I still see in the street sometimes, walking along at an unhurried pace, so if I walk fast, I will catch up to him at the corner before the light turns green. I have a new book coming out in the spring. It's called Poems in the Manner of. And I'd like to read a few poems and mention that I owe a debt of gratitude to Ashley Gilliam, my editor at Scribner, who helped me prepare the manuscript and choose the poems, since I wrote about twice as many as could fit into a book. Here is Poem in the Manner of Rainer Maria Rilke. Far are the moons of Jupiter, yet how much farther the distance from the boy's bedroom to the hill. He will fly, he will fall, but he will not fail his father. Mothers are kind, but against free will. Fate spans the sciences, and perhaps there are many, but there is one art only, and muses are cruel. They part with poems as a miser parts with money. No masters teach the trade to kids in school. Everything fair is far, and circles are incomplete. For her he would enlarge the realm of the rose, for her endure the threat of violence. At the far end of night will watchmen repeat the litany of the disenchanted, or, who knows, hear a voice when there is no voice but silence. Then I wrote two poems in the manner of Edna St. Vincent Millay, and what I realized reading her sonnets, which are wonderful, is that if you keep just the first word and the last word of each line, you get the gist of it. Two poems in the manner of Edna St. Vincent Millay. One, I presently and jest and see and breast and all my pretty follies flung aside, that gaze, naked pride, spread ways. I remained but one more dream, cherish gained and supreme, a ghost you knew, who would have loved you in a day or two. Two, what and why I have forgotten, and what arms have lain under head, but rain is full of ghosts that tap and sigh upon reply, and pain for unremembered lads that not again will cry. Thus the lonely tree, nor one, yet before, I have come and gone, I, me, a little while, no more. A poem in the manner of Vladimir Mayakovsky. I have a special affection for this poem because it appeared in the Kenyan Review and then it was reprinted in the San Diego Reader. And when it appeared in the San Diego Reader, they had a photo of me, and underneath it, it said, Vladimir Mayakovsky. So that's on my office door. Poem in the manner of Vladimir Mayakovsky. Like a giant in slippers reading the morning news of an event that hasn't yet happened, I wear my robe of authority like the majestic girth of a great detective. My job to puzzle out how we got to this stalemate with its tragic inevitability. Can I retrace the moves, the sacrifice of a pawn to support the bishop's attack? My backbone is my flute. You play it, I sing, it hurts. The words fly from my mouth like people jumping off a bridge in flames, and in the city of my heart, that bridge is a temple, and I am a boy who sings in the choir of the temple that is burning, so I cannot sing, "Oh, Mother, forgive me." And here's a poem in the manner of Pablo Neruda. Yesterday I was too lazy to write this poem, so I wrote an ode to laziness and put in yellow birds and purple plums. I closed my eyes and wrote an ode to sleep. I opened them and conceived of odes to streets, rain, wine, a beautiful nude, my clothes waiting for me to wear them, my toolbox, my medicine chest. But these I left unwritten. Laziness demanded it. She was a beautiful nude, and we sat on the porch and watched the storm, and I didn't write an ode to the storm, and an ode to dying in Paris on a Thursday afternoon, an ode to dusk on a lonely country road, an ode to chaos, the sea, and an ode to form, to books, to Buddhism, to the stars and moon. And here's a poem in the manner of Charles Bukowski. You do what you want, I'll do what I want, and we'll see which one of us gets to the $20 window in time for the fourth race at Del Mar. On the goddamn radio that's always playing in my bitch's kitchen, I heard some East Coast big shot author say he needs to jerk off before he can write. All I can say is, fuck that shit. I hate poets who beg you to like them because you feel sorry for them. Do not feel sorry for me. I won on bitch's brew in the fourth and went home and drank a fifth of bourbon and got laid. Here's a poem that's in the book that is inspired by Kenneth Coke. It's called Ode on Punctuation, and the epigraph is from a Polish writer I met in Poland named Pauline Ambrosi, and she said, a poem without punctuation is female. So that's a great idea. The comma is female. The exclamation point, male. The semicolon is femme, bicurious, sub 29, Virginia. The apostrophe is prosperous, possessive, female, femme. The colon looks both ways before crossing the street, M. The fast-running dash cannot make up his mind about the curvaceous question mark lurking in the lobby. What to do? The parenthesis, F 30, needs attention and keeps interrupting. Thus, the sentence moves from the solace of day to the lunacy of night in a dependent clause beginning although. Although it is past curfew, the nouns in the woods conjugate the verbs unattended by adjectives and adverbs, and the sentence drives to a climax and ends in a classic final male full stop. Well, on August 8th of 2008, we had this wonderful symmetry of 08 as the month, 22 as the day, and 08 as the year. 08, 22, 08. So in a way, it's backwards and forwards. And I wrote a poem on that day. Today, in 1862, Claude Debussy was born. I remember where I was and what I was doing 100 years and 2 months later. Elementary algebra, trombone practice, Julius Caesar on the record player, with Brando as Antony, simple button hook patterns in football, the French subjunctive, and the use of quarantine rather than blockade during the Cuban Missile Crisis. It was considered the less belligerent word. Much was made of it in 1962, centenary of Debussy's birth. And if today I play his Rhapsody for saxophone and orchestra for the 10 minutes it requires of my undivided attention, who will attack me for living in Paris in 1908 instead of now? Let them. I'll take my stand, my music stand, with the composer of my favorite Danse Tarentelle. And finally, I'd like to read a sonnet called Room Key. I find you here, my Lord Ares, god of strife, in the soiled sheets of temporary lovers who merged in the dark and blew their covers, the anonymous husband, the disappointed wife. Here they lie, their bones exposed, vanity obeyed, vows unmade, lust opposed by fear with lust the winner, the tongue tasting the nectar, melting the will, nostalgia for the mud in her nostrils flaring, the rush of blood stiffening his resolve, and look at what they have to lose and yet they cannot quit. So strong is love, the blind almighty boy, son of beauty, who took the war to Troy. Well, that's all the poems I brought. So I hope that gives you a good account. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mary Jo Bang is a poet and teacher who lives and works in St. Louis. She's the author of 7 books of poems, including Elegy, which won the National Book Critics Award in Poetry, The Bride of E, and The Last 2 Seconds, published by Grey Wolf Press in 2015. She has also published an acclaimed translation of Dante's Inferno. She's a professor of English at Washington University in St. Louis. Many of the poems in Mary Jo Bang's collection, The Last 2 Seconds, began life either ekphrastically or else as the result of some serious engagement with a work of literature, a dictionary, an article on contemporary art, a text on the brain, a pop song from 1983, an opera, a film. Read on their own, the notes, while fascinating, might not surprise some readers in their frames of reference. Reading the poems, however, is another story altogether. Bang so subsumes her sources that not only would you be hard-pressed to locate them without the notes, but their ideas and language have been totally transformed. She has an exquisite ear which enables her to hear into texts dear to her, such as Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway. Here's a section from part 2 of Let's Say Yes, composed, Bang informs us, of words from the novel. Such things are merged. The cupboard outline becomes soft. A table, cigarette smoke, a baby bright pink, daring with being. It reminds us how poetic that novel is, but it also starts to sound, in its parataxis, like that intensely visual poet, James Schuyler. There's a consistent music to these poems, carefully nuanced, that rings true. In her poem, Equidistant from the Center of Never, it is as if each of the 10 lines has a caesura. This is accentuated in the 2nd and 10th lines, which both end with complete sentences. A cat brushed by a leg. Everything lasted a second. Music's intense awareness of time's passing is palpable everywhere in these poems. Not levity, to be sure, but a certain roundedness is Bang's gift to us, a heartfelt joy in the process of living, as that is manifested in poetry's engagement with the world around it. Please join me in welcoming Mary Jo Bang.
Is that right? Is that good? Yeah? Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks to Vincent Katz for inviting me. Thanks to Megan. Thanks to everyone at DIA. Thanks to all of you who came. Thanks to my friend David Lehman, whose poems were extraordinary. I'm going to read some poems from a forthcoming book that are all in dialogue with the Bauhaus and with photographs that were taken often by a woman named Lucia Moholy, who was the first wife of Laszlo Moholy-Nagy. Together they made the early photograms, but her name gets erased from history for various reasons. So while this project wasn't a kind of reclamation of her, I don't mind the fact that she's operated as a muse for many of these poems. Excuse me a minute. So the poems have a speaker who's part Lucia Moholy, part Mary Jo Bang, and part sheer invention. The first one is a model of a machine. I'll begin by saying that objects can be unintentionally beautiful. Consider the simplicity of 3 or 4 self-aligning ball bearings, the economy of a compass. Brilliant, no? We thought so. We had confidence in architecture and design beyond the base commercial. Stage settings, furniture, typography, everything came with a moral mandate. The machine was important, of course. At 4 o'clock in the morning, ideas came effortlessly, as if out of the air, the way a teapot or a pan comes cleanly out of the cupboard. In the blank space between the following day and the previous night, you see the beauty of a propeller, for instance, and think, yes, I want that silver medal to mean something more than just flight. The titles of most of these are taken from an index listing different Bauhaus photographs. So this is of mannequins and building exteriors. Living looks random and barren and formless when you're adamantly busy inventing a now. The past will subtract itself from the new, especially wherever glass is a clean element on the edge of the no longer ornamented eve. I'm a double of myself, one half a doll that was spared, one half dead. A feather is a form of frou-frou, and only so interesting. We want no more of that business. We are spent, some. At the end of the day, I never close my eyes. The landscape just is. What good is sighing? There are lines in her face that don't yet exist. The doll's face is breaking. She has no wrist. Self-portrait as a photograph of a platter. A platter can embody a wish to be simple. We are who we are. Wir sind. I also speak English. I married a master. I taught him something. I know what I'm doing. An image stands for the thing that is taken. I am taking everything I see. This is how I see myself. The platter is flat and somewhat lasting. I made it last. Circumambient, to be around. I just realized I didn't see what time it was when I began. We don't want one more poem than necessary. One glass negative. We were ridiculous, me with my hijinks and hat, him with his boredom and drink. I look back now and see buildings so thick that the life I thought I was making then is nothing but interlocking angles, and above them, that blot of gray sky I sometimes saw. Underneath is the edge of what wasn't known then, when I would go, when I would come back, what I would be when. I was hardworking, but sometimes being becomes a habit. I came on stage wearing a lavender-fitted dress with a stand-up collar. He looked at me, took a drink, a man examining a hothouse flower. I clicked, then closed my eyes, the better to imagine my upcoming absence. Dwelling in our time. Knife to the narrative root, a pillow over the aperture opening, the cafe narrowing to silk and a single view. With a velvet curtain over your eyes, you drink the ink from an open orbit. The glass lens asks you to answer, say yes for one, no for not now, but maybe later. The marble maybes scatter. The bear lumbers off. Did you know what I meant when I said, do you want someone to love you or just this? I too am still. I refuse to ask Mother, may I, may I, may I, only to get another maybe. A chess set on a table between two chairs. I wanted to be my father, leave, return, leave again, saying nothing to no one. My mother, a musician, an orchestra of self-absorption. My brother, a filmmaker who says he wants to reinvent himself. He thinks an American name will make a new man of him. It's as if a pill dissolved sublingually can make the mouth speak in a manner the mind never knew. We are in a cafe. The mosaic ceiling above us is a blue, overturned bowlful of goldfish. Each open mouth is a blind spot. Want, want, want. I catch sight of myself in a mirror. Two nudes. I was working in a bookstore, and as an antidote to the twin torment of exhaustion and boredom, one day I went with a friend on a walking tour. We made it as far as Berlin, and there I met the man I would move with to a boarding house, then to finished rooms in a flat of a civil servant, and from there one morning in January to the registry to be married. We then moved to a studio apartment, and 2 years later, from there to where boys returning from the war would remove their collars and sew them back on with red thread, to demonstrate the end of their allegiance to the cruel and fastidious past. Everyone wanted to be launched into a place from which you could look back and ask whether the red was also meant to enact spilled blood. You could say so, but only if you want to insist that history's minutiae is best read as allegory. The fact is, history didn't exist then. Every day was a 24-hour standstill on a bridge from which we discreetly looked into the distance, hoping to catch sight of the future. It's near where you're standing now. One day, we were lying in the sun, dressed in nothing but our skin, when a camera came by and devoured us. On the balcony of the building, there's no sleeping now, no morphia dream-packed with knife as a needle. We are staying awake and pressing against one another as if whatever is left is all that will ever be. We need one another, as if one were on a fragile bough being sawed. I see the trace of a faint scar embedded above your right eyebrow. I knew then what it was to feel the dying fall. Admission. My mother was glamorous in a way I knew I never would be. Velvet belt buckle, mascara lash, miniature crimson lipstick alive in the pocket of a purse. Her bow mouth was forever being twinned to a tissue. I would never wear that black window pane, see-through blouse, mother of pearl buttons tracing the path of her spine. Every woman was her rival. You could say seriousness made me impossible, exactly the same way beauty made her. I understand men. Some like to have one woman in their arms, while a second one stands on a half shell, both continuously shifting between being and being seen. Even as a child, I understood there were erotic fishhooks that one couldn't see. I learned to use a camera to see what I could be. I'll read 4 more poems, 2 of these and 2 from the last 2 seconds. The Mirror. My hair is held back by a barrette. The tree in the background is green. Out of sight, bird calls on the right. To the far left, and almost too far off to be heard, a dialogue between 2 men. I wish I could break in, too, and be formless, one half listening in, one half thinking about nothing but the fact that the nape of my neck is too warm. The express train flashes past, followed by a crashing silence. I've rejected the mild smile. It's married to the risk of fossilization. Granite with blood in its veins is still granite. On the bark of the pine behind me, a single cicada is glittering. That world is an island where it is always morning and the cool breeze is always invigorating. You can tell by my hair how it's blown back. You can tell by the light it's there and not going anywhere. There is no moment that isn't all spectacle. The theatrical silence is the sun. The gray stage is winter. The circle is pure dilatation, the shock mouth of me looking back at that avalanche of broken glass. The human figure in a dress. Naked or not, I'm a costume that moves, figurine with a face that changes. You could call me a mood. I begin cheerful, but sometimes turn solemn when confronted with my own mythology. Wolf in a cape, cat claw scratch on a cupboard door, mouse tail in the hand of a bland farmer's wife, a drop of blood on her shoe. Today's beginning ended in a dream. In a fantastical bed, a lover leaned in to kiss me, just as I realized I was part machine, part primitive urge. I left the bed and said, "You know, don't you, not everyone is so disposed." And then I heard from inside my head, "You should say, not everyone is so disposed to your utopia." Only then did I realize I'd been inexact. Even here, there are scolds that tell you how to be. Sometimes they live inside. Naked or not, I am trying to tuck my arms invisibly behind my back so that all you can see are my breasts and my highly simplified head. So I'm going to read these 2 poems. One is called A Structure of Repeating Units. A lamp is a great gift, I think. The brass tack ouch of a hand to a hot bulb takes you straight to the top of the threshold of feeling. A small plastic object held to the cheek is also quite nice. I love poly socks, dish towels with rickrack, a surfboard anointed with one aqua stripe. Idle want seems to dog me along a long cord that's plugged into the boot in the mouth of the near recent past. The plastic, we both know, is nothing but a patchwork of particles, a mashup of atoms, petroleum before or after its oil, but still it means so much more, something finer than fine, like pearls bred from time and insouciance, or something like that. I turn out the light, lock the door, lie down, brush my hair from my forehead, and listen for the cinematographer to say to the dark, just wait, and the world will come back. The terror I have, I keep hidden. Or put them into poems. So Vincent mentioned the series of the Mrs. Dalloway poems, where I took every 50 pages, I chose words and made a poem. So these are the last 50 pages of Mrs. Dalloway, and the novel ends with the statement, "There she was." Someone has asked, "Where's Clarissa?" There she was. So the title of this is "There She Was." The house stood, the cars were standing. She was walking over to the dog, which had to be remembered. "Shake hands," she said. He straightened, bent, straightened. His manner was irreproachable, that being with a tail. It was extraordinary, life was. Furs being petted, people standing upright, panic, fear, tight skirts, ankles, thought. The creature standing, her giving little pats. She was enjoying standing there. She had forgotten this feeling. Ordinary things, curtains, biscuits, bones, a creature raising one foreleg, the movies. She stood looking as if she would solidify, Darwin draped in black, remembering the flora or fauna. Of course, she would really only be remembering a garden, trees, wallpaper, a sea lion barking, a doctor of misery on the verge of difficulty, a boy gone, death, death without life, terror, fear, disaster, punishment, profound darkness, evening. She walked to the window, sky, clouds coming into the room. How odd, she thought, to be. Thank you so much.